Good morning. What a week. A Republican sweep. President-elect Donald Trump wasting no time preparing for his move to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is Sunday Morning Futures, and we're happy you're here. Mr. Trump addressing his priorities with the leaders of the House and Senate this weekend. So what will his relationship with Congress be like? We'll ask House Oversight Committee Chairman Jason Chaffetz coming up. Plus, how will a Trump presidency impact your money? One of the nation's top economists will join us as we look at the best week for the stock market in 5 years. And the president-elect hinting he will keep some parts of Obamacare, the architect of the health care law, on how this could affect patients and their doctors as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Futures this morning. Assemble his administration just days after his stunning victory this past week. Fox News is learning that Mr. Trump has spoken on the telephone with several top Republican leaders this week, including Mitt Romney, Jeb Bush, and Ohio Governor John Kasich. Meanwhile, a shakeup on the transition team. Vice President-elect Mike Pence now running the show, taking over the role from New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Let's bring in Newt Gingrich right now. He is former Speaker of the House, Vice Chairman of Trump's transition team, and author of the book Treason. Mr. Speaker, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's good to be with you.
So I guess let me kick it off with your thoughts on where this is going. Are there parameters, Newt, that you can share with us in terms of what the priorities are for President-elect Trump's administration as you fill these holes?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think people who are curious should go back and read his speech at Gettysburg, and then where he outlined a contract with the American voter, and then should look at his speech in Charlotte, where he talked about a new deal for African Americans. Those two speeches capture the beginning of Trumpism. He's going to want people who are change agents. He's going to want people who are prepared to take on the Washington establishment. He's going to want people who are committed to draining the swamp, as he put it in the campaign. I think what he doesn't want is go along to get along, traditional work with the bureaucracy, become a K Street lobbyist insider kind of personalities. And I think they're going to look very hard for people who are committed to change, who understand the general direction, not just of President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect Pence, but also of the Americans who elected them. There was a real popular surge of people who want Washington changed, and that's the people who President-elect Trump represents.
Which brings me to one of his proposals, and that is a policy that would ban many members of the transition team from lobbying the same federal agencies that they are helping to shape. I like this idea because it speaks right to draining the swamp and ending any corruption.
You know, he had a number of very significant proposals, including banning congressmen from lobbying, banning members of the senior executive branch from lobbying. I think that there's a lot to be said for that. And I think that we have to find new ways to work. You want to be able to share information, but you don't want insiders to have huge advantages, and you don't want things to be done based on personality or whose PAC reception you went to for a contribution. And I think cleaning that up is going to be really, really hard. This city has grown into sort of an incestuous jungle. It's one of the highest income areas in America, and it's also one of the bluest. I mean, if you look at the vote patterns of Washington and the surrounding suburbs, this is sort of the center of anti-Trumpism.
Is he changing his positions on any of the things that really led him to victory? People are questioning, is he actually going to build that wall on the southern border? People are questioning Obamacare. Is he going to keep any parts of it? After his meeting with President Obama, there's this conversation taking place that, oh, maybe he won't completely repeal and replace. And then, of course, there's the Muslim ban. That's been taken off the website. Has he softened his stance there? Tell me about the evolution of Trump policies, Newt, and whether or not we should expect any change to what he told us on the campaign trail.
Well, first of all, I think you always have to expect some changes as you start developing the details of a general direction. Is he going to get control of our southern border? I suspect he is. I suspect he's going to do it with a combination of dramatically reinforcing the Border Patrol and the customs agents and developing appropriate kinds of walls and fences, which we know work. I mean, Hungary reduced the number of refugees coming in by 99% in one day, simply by building an effective fence and policing it. So we know it can be done, and countries have done it all over the world. Trump does know how to build things. That'll be one of his highest legislative priorities, I would guess. I think also there are parts of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, that are clearly going to survive. Nobody I know of thinks you should take young people under 26 off of their parents' insurance. That's now established. It's almost certainly going to be there. And nobody in the insurance industry seems to think that in itself that's a problem. I think similarly, preconditions as it relates to people who already have insurance coverage is absolutely, I think, something people believe in. Dealing with people who don't get insurance, however, is a different problem, and that may lead to the development of high-risk pools or other kind of measures because people who absolutely refuse to buy insurance put themselves and the entire system at risk financially.
I feel like the Fox Business Network was really, it got it from the get-go in terms of Trump's appeal. I know you and I have spoken in the past about small business. Every time I run into a small business person, they were just desperate for Trump economics because of Obamacare. They want that repealed and replaced. It's just too expensive. So what's the worst parts of the Affordable Care Act? The fact that we're going to see these triple-digit increases in premiums next year, and how easy will it be for him to pull out of that?
Well, I mean, first of all, there has to be a transition because, as you know, all of these insurance companies have to go out to 50 state insurance commissioners plus D.C. They have year-long cycles of change. It's very hard. I mean, once you sign up for an insurance policy for a year, they can't come in 6 months in and change it dramatically. So you have a cycle time here that's very difficult and very complicated. And it's already challenging because they're putting together the plans right now to get approved for 2018. So to really get dramatic change, you've got to move both very rapidly, but unless you want to compound the mess and create an even bigger disaster, you got to do it with some sophistication that is, I think, very, very challenging.
Let me switch over to the new cabinet and the transition that's taking place now. And I recognize some of these situations are going to be imminent in terms of when we'll learn, and you probably can't say a lot about some of it. But when it comes to the chief of staff position, first off, is this a role that you're interested in?
No. Look, they have, I think, two primary candidates. They're both terrific people. Steve Bannon, who became really the driver inside the campaign system, while Kellyanne was the driver on the airplane and in the media. And Bannon is a very sophisticated guy. He was a Goldman Sachs managing partner. He has made movies in Hollywood. He ran Breitbart. He's really a very competent, very energetic person. And the other person is Reince Priebus, who developed the largest, most sophisticated Republican National Committee in history, had 7,500-page staff nationwide. He provided the ground game that matched up with the Trump campaign's social media and news media game, and it was that combination that won the election. Both Priebus, who has done an amazing job, clearly the most important Republican National Committee chairman in modern times. Both Priebus and Bannon are very competent people. My guess is they're both going to end up with very significant positions. This, in the end, comes down to President-elect Trump. I mean, he has to surround himself with people he's comfortable with and make a system work for him. Every president is unique. Every president has their own system. And he has got to do something along that line. If you notice with President Obama, his closest advisor is not the chief of staff. The chief of staff runs the White House, but in fact is not his closest advisor.
Which is why I would think that having a Washington guy or gal in there as chief of staff would be better, because there will undoubtedly be blind spots that come up, that President-elect Trump needs somebody who knows his way around Washington. So maybe Reince Priebus. But those are the two leading candidates.
But remember, I mean, Bannon knows his way around Washington, too. I like Reince is a very close personal friend of mine, so I have some prejudice there. I've worked with Bannon on a number of movies. I know how smart he is. My point is, you can imagine some system where one of them is managing the daily traffic and the other is dealing with the biggest problems. And that's sort of what President Obama developed over his presidency. It's in many ways what Franklin Delano Roosevelt did with Harry Hopkins. So I think President-elect Trump, he's a smart guy, and he's run big systems. I mean, he's run more big systems than any president since Dwight David Eisenhower, who had been the commander in Europe. And so he's going to think through what he needs to make the White House work on his terms.
Real quick, Newt, before you go, this phone call that went on between John Kasich and President-elect Trump and Mitt Romney, the Bushes. Wow, what a mistake for those guys to not get behind the person that they made a pledge that they would get behind. Is there a friendship? I mean, what does it matter that they did what they did and they deserted Donald Trump, frankly?
Well, of course it matters. I mean, you can't have the kind of vitriol that Mitt Romney used and not have some of it stick. You can't have the kind of moral arrogance that John Kasich displayed all the way through and not have some of it stick. On the other hand, I think President-elect Trump was serious when he said on election night he wants to be president of all the American people. He wants to bring everyone together. And I think that he's illustrating that by being willing to talk with and work with people across the board. And I think that's a good attitude. I think in dealing with people like the next Democratic leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, having that attitude is going to be very helpful to the Trump presidency.
Yeah. Newt Gingrich, always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much.
You.
Congratulations, Newt. You've been talking about this and supporting this team for a long time. And, of course, you've been calling out the media for dishonesty as well. We thank you for being here this morning, Newt.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. So how will President-elect Trump mesh with the Republican Congress, where many lawmakers oppose some key parts of his agenda? We'll talk with House Oversight Chairman Jason Chaffetz next, live. Follow me on Twitter, at Maria Bartiromo, at Sunday Futures. Let us know what you'd like to hear from Congressman Chaffetz next. Stay with us. We're looking ahead right now.